All right, so in this week's guitar lesson, we're going to look at a song that has a very simple chord structure. It's just basic major and minor chords, chords that you already know. But the point of this lesson, besides learning how to play the composition, which is an added bonus, the real point of this lesson is for you to learn some different things to embellish those chords, ways that you can enhance them by attaching a certain fill lick to a certain type of chord or a part of a scale. So when you encounter a major chord or a minor chord in a song when you're improvising or when you're writing, what can you do to make that chord sound better? And that's really all this composition is just taking those basic chords and working some little fills around each of those chords. And so we're going to split this lesson into two parts. In this video, we're going to go through the first half. If you'd like to get the second half, download the tab PDF file and also access the on-screen tab viewer, which is interactive. You can get all of those extra things by going to activemelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP494. So the first thing we need to do is talk about the chord structure. We're going to look at we're going to start off and look at the first four chords that were played. Let me play that as just the first part of that, and then we'll talk about it. All right, so I lied. I said we would look at the first four chords. We're actually looking at the first five chords if you count that first thing that I played, which is a chord. It's the 5 chord, and it's our E7 chord, and I played it up in this position. The song that we're going to be playing is in the key of A. I should have probably started with that. We're going to be playing a little blues in the key of A, and we're starting with the 5 chord. Okay, so the first 4 chords outside of that opening chord are as follows. We have our 1 chord, which is an A. We have our 3 major chord, which I'll explain in a minute, which is our C sharp major. Then we go to our 6 chord, which is our F sharp minor. It's also known as the relative minor. And then we go back to the 1 chord, but we make it a 7 chord, a dominant 7. So we go back to our A, but now it's an A7. So those are the first 4 chords we're going to look at. A, C sharp, F sharp minor, A7. If we're thinking about our chord family, our 3 chord is always minor. So the general rule is your 1 chord, 4 chord, and 5 chords are major chords. Your 2 chord, 3 chord, and 6 chord are always minor chords, and then the 7 chord is a diminished chord. And these are the chords that live in the chord family for the key of A. So I'm talking about our A major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's where those numbers come from. And if you put a chord to each of those instead of just playing a note, it would be that formula. If you want more detail on that, you can go to the Essential Theory course, which you would have access to as a premium member. Go into one of the units there, and it's called the chord family, so it goes into more detail. But here's the thing. Even though by default the 3 chord should be a minor chord, you can make it major. You can do the same for a 2 chord and the same for a 6 chord as well. When you would want to do that is if you're going for that kind of Piedmont blues sound or ragtime blues sound. And this is how I use it. There's lots of different use cases, but anytime I'm going for that ragtime sound, like a Bessie Smith song or something, I always think of that where you take one of those minor chords from the chord family and just make it major. So if you're trying to write a song and you're going for some kind of like a little out-of-the-box kind of vibe, try doing that. Try breaking the formula. And what you're doing is you're borrowing a chord from another key for that moment, but it gives the song kind of a whole different vibe. So that's what's going on. That's why that 3 chord is major, that C sharp. Okay, so I started with the E7 chord, and then we go right into the A. That's how I played it. Little vamp there, where I'm really kind of going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, A, D, back to the A. That's a gospel move that I use quite a bit. But I never actually played an A chord. I just played this little kind of riff here, but that represents our A chord. So let me show you how to play that, and then I'll explain it a little more. We're going to borrow the first 4 strings here on the 5th fret, and then we're going to play strings 5, which is our open 5th string, that open A, 5, 4, 3, and if you happen to hit the 2nd string, that's okay, but watch this. You hammer on with your middle finger to the 6th fret 3rd string. What you're essentially doing is playing your A chord here. You're just hammering on to that little triad. But by adding this note in there, you got your flat 7, so it gives it that bluesy sound. So that's the first thing I do. Then I bar the first 4 strings up here on the 7th fret, play the same strings. That's your 4 chord. And then back to the first part. So you have. Now that is, if you walk away with nothing else, you have to get this. If you're interested in playing blues, both lead and rhythm, this comes in handy for both cases. If you think of this as something that's attached to this chord shape, the light bulb should go off for you. You go, oh, okay, so if I'm playing a G chord, I don't have to just play a G chord. I can go. As long as the chord would last in the song, I can keep pivoting back and forth between that one chord and its 4 chord. You see what I'm saying? B chord. So you have to start thinking about songs and playing, instead of it being so compartmentalized as, oh no, that's rhythm. Rhythm, we only do this. We only strum a chord. Lead, we only play single strings. That has to be thrown out eventually. And you start seeing music as more of a holistic approach. And that could be a chord. That could be a rhythm. That could be a lead. You could start mixing the two together. Okay, so I've made my point. So that's the 1 chord. There's our 5. Then we go into our C chord. Or I'm sorry, our C sharp chord. And I played it right here, just using the A shape. I'm going back to the old cage system, which I always do. So that's what that is. And then my embellishment for this one's pretty simple, is I just went like this. I just made it a C7. So I played the C, and then the C7. And that flat 7 is what gives it that bluesy sound. So it would be like your C major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You flat the 7. And you get that sound. Now I played it here, but I could have also played it up here, which we'll do the second time around actually. I'll play it in this position. So let's back it up. We'll set the stage with our E7 chord or 5 chord. There's our A, C sharp, C sharp 7. Now we're going to go to the 6th chord. And I'm going to play my F sharp minor chord here, which is using the E minor shape. Think of your E minor in first position that you learned, like this. Just slide it up 2 frets and then bar. You're capoing where the nut was to replace the nut with your finger rather. Now, when I play that, I take my pinky off for 2 reasons. One, I get a different chord. I get an F sharp minor 7 chord because you got that flat 7 note in there. But the other reason I do it is when you take your pinky off, it opens up a whole new world of possibility. So now I can go, I can play the chord and then all these little embellishments around that chord. Right? And so what I'm thinking about when I do that is I'm thinking about, this will be the light bulb for a lot of you. Watch this. There's my minor chord, right? And then here is my minor pentatonic scale. Pattern 1. Oh, so that minor chord is kind of inside my minor pentatonic scale. So when you realize that, when you can see that, you can go, oh yeah, okay, so there's my minor chord. I can throw in whatever little minor pentatonic lick I want, and it's going to fit perfectly with that chord because it's a minor chord, therefore the minor pentatonic scale is going to fit. So what I played when I did that was I just actually hit one note. I hit this one, which is the 4th fret 1st string, but that converts this F sharp minor 7 chord into an F sharp minor 9 by adding that note. Now I do that all the time when I'm playing out of this chord shape. I love that minor 9 sound. Now, some of you are going to say, wait a minute, that note's not in your minor pentatonic scale because you were just showing this. So you're right, it isn't. But if you think about, this gets into the modes just for a second, but if you think about Dorian mode, and I talk about this quite a bit, where you've got your Dorian mode pattern, right? And it's connected to your chord shape here. So with that, I've got these 3 notes and then these 3 notes. So this note to me would be one of those Dorian notes. So if I'm thinking Dorian, I've got all these things I can do right out of that chord shape. All right, from the beginning again, we have our 5 chord, we go to our A, C sharp, C sharp 7, there's our F sharp minor, and then watch this, we're going to go back to the A, but since I'm already in this position, I'm just going to slide everything up so that I'm barring on the 5th fret, and I'll add my fingers where they need to be to play the A7 chord in this position. And so you can think about just your A, major chord, like using the E shape. Take your pinky off and put it up here. In this case, it'd be on the 8th fret, 2nd string. And then the embellishment that I played goes like this. To get us to the 4 chord. So that embellishment goes like that. Let me just show you the notes there. 8th fret, 2nd string. Then we come up to the 5th fret and 7th fret on the 1st string. And then a quick flick there to get us from the 6th back to the 5th fret on the 1st string. 8th fret, 2nd string again. And then we go into our 4 chord. So when I played that note, which is my 7th fret, 2nd string, I played it with my pinky so that I can go ahead and actually I went ahead and made the chord for the next chord, which is my D chord. Some of you would use your ring finger for that. The scale that I'm using for that would be A mixolydian. And all A mixolydian is taking your A major scale and you flat the 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Flat that 7. So now I have. So look at that. So when I play this lick, it's just walking up mixolydian, A mixolydian, and down. It's very simple, just a little piece of it. But walk away with that piece. So if you're playing a 7 chord, you can use that lick, and you can go to another chord. You don't have to always go to the 4 chord. You can go to whatever chord you're going to go to, but let that be a filler. And since you know where that filler is coming from, make your own filler. You could go crazy with that. You could find other points in that scale, in that mixolydian scale, and work those in. And that's really all these little embellishments are designed for, is just to fill the space a little bit. Since I'm playing this solo guitar and I don't have anyone to play with me, I'm just filling the space with licks that are relevant to the chord that I'm on. So then we go to that D chord, and I'm just playing the D chord using the A shape from the Cage system. So then I went a little fill there. I use this all the time. I got this from Jimi Hendrix. So you take your A shape, and where I've got my pinky here, I think of that as a fence. And so on this side of the fence, I've got this as my bass note. If I replace the fence with my index finger, I can put my bass note up here, which would be in the 9th fret. So that's a different voicing of that same chord. And this gets into a different chord shape from Cage. This would be your A shape, and this would be your G shape, right? Just remember, when you're playing these chord shapes from the Cage system, you don't have to hit all 6 strings at once. You can just do them in little chunks. That's how I do it. So you can use that as a fill. And the way Hendrix would do it would be, think about like Wind Cries Mary. It's like you've got these kind of doing the same thing that you just did, but in that other position. Obviously, he plays that in a different key, but you get the idea there. So there's my D. And then we go back to the E7. I just played it once, just strummed it once, nothing clever there. And then to get us back to the 1 chord, I threw in this little lick, and that lick is back to that A mixolydian scale. So that's where the notes are coming from. And it's the same notes that we already played. I'm just really repeating it. We go back to the 8th fret 2nd string, and then 5th fret 1st string. And then this is the same. Then I come down here to embar strings 2 and 3 on the 7th fret. It may have been 2, 3, and 4 actually. Yeah, actually I think it is. I go back to what I played in the intro, for the A. So, and then I hit that open A string, and that kind of completes the chord. It sort of pulls you back to the 1 chord. And then I went down here and played a little A shuffle down in this position. So I'm going to end this part 1 video here. Now if you'll join us for part 2, we're going to go over the same chord structure so the song doesn't change. There's not like another part to this, but we're going to be playing those chords in different positions, different voicings, and I'll give you some different embellishment ideas. If you're not a premium member yet, I would encourage you to at least look into it. I've got 11, 12 years worth of in-depth lessons like this, and they're all with the same goal in mind, which is to help you become better at songwriting and become better at improvising and just really know your instrument. All right, we'll see you in part 2.